Hey, Blue Rockers. Welcome to Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. I'm Connie Willis, but tonight I'm Crypto Connie. In fact, it's Crypto Connie Tuesday. How you like them apples? We've been doing this for about 6 months now, I think, with crypto, and I've learned quite a bit. And for those of you that are new here, because I get a lot of new crypto people coming in and they're not sure what the show's all about, well, it's Blue Rock Talk, right? You get the Blue Rock, right? And then talk. And it's Earth's most interesting conversations. And that includes people, places, and things. Now, if you are a subscriber, you are then called a Blue Rocker. And a Blue Rocker is someone in the know. All right, so you want to be a Blue Rocker. And then when you meet other Blue Rockers, because we're all pretty cool, we're all open to everything, we all listen to each other and learn. But to know another Blue Rocker in the middle of nowhere with all these other people around, that's what you do. It's kind of Spock, backwards and sideways, all right? Comes real casual to you, just a quick little, glimpse with somebody with your hand, and the other Blue Rocker will do the same, and life is good. You can hang out and leave all the other people alone, right? You can have your own talk going on. So this week, before we bring on our guest tonight, this week we've got some really cool things going on. We're at Tuesday here. Now I'm going to start something new on Wednesdays that I think you guys are going to really like, but I'm not going to say what it is yet, even though I think this audience would absolutely love this. I can't say it yet. I got to wait until I line some people up, but I certainly do. I want to test it out, so we'll see how it goes throughout the night. Thursday, that's really signature Thursday of Blue Rock Talk, but I also like calling it Far Out Thursday. In fact, this Thursday night we're going to have Travis Walton in. He had some problems with his Skype last week, but this Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have Travis Walton in. Looking forward to that. What a great guy, and of course a great story. And if you've hung out with his story, which is Fire in the Sky, the UFO comes down, he was all cocky and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, he's changed his tune in the past, I don't know how many years it's been now, but it's pretty interesting if you haven't heard his latest thoughts. And then on Friday, of course, it's Bigfoot Friday. That's going to be fun as always. And the Saturday night, I'm actually on Coast to Coast. We got Samantha Ellen Ritchie, who usually talks about forest friends. However, she has found something called little people. They're 3 to 4 inches tall, and she's got pictures, and let me tell you, they are cool. They've got hair. They've got clothes. One of them has little glasses like Benjamin Franklin. Kid you not. I can't wait. It'll be fun. That's on Coast to Coast Saturday night, and then the featured guest is going to be Jerry Wills, who is a healer and an adventurer, and he kind of does everything. Really interesting guy. Great sense of humor, too. I think you're going to like him. So let's go ahead and bring on our guest here. I'm looking forward to talking to this man. I want to thank James out in Idaho for setting this up for me tonight. And this is the first time I've ever met him. I've heard about him a lot, over and over again, in fact. And I've seen him, and I've passed by, and I've kind of tried to watch. And I wasn't into crypto yet, and I kind of would try to watch, and I just couldn't get it. It's just choose. And then I saw that he talked about some other things too, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. It wasn't just crypto. It was all sorts of really neat things. And I think he even lives on the water, so he's a man after my own heart. So let's bring him in here and welcome Mr. Clif High. Welcome to Blue Rock Talk.
Thank you much. I didn't know it was a cult, by the way.
Oh, yeah, the Blue Rocker. Can you do it? Let's see.
Right, secret hand signs and everything.
Let's see if you can do it. Can you do it?
Yeah, I can do it.
You're a Blue Rocker.
Live long and prosper, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that would be fun. Everybody's kind of got their own thing, right? And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Because we all talk about neat things that not everybody talks about. So,
But is this how the Masons got started?
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Hey, Kentucky's full of all sorts of things, so maybe that's where the idea came up. There's some crazy stuff here. And there's crazy stuff where you are, right? You're in Washington State.
Oh, yeah. And just up the road from Sasquatch.
That's what I was going to say. Yes, exactly right. I've been there several times, and some scary stuff up there. I think they're bigger up there. I think they're bigger than they are here. I think ours are nicer.
Probably so, yeah. Today on the way back from our local civilization, I encountered a coyote that was robust. He was a good-sized fellow and had, really good hair and everything. Obviously was in the prime. And it's like, I think all the critters around here are pretty much that way, yes.
Wow. So you're right on the water.
Yes. Yeah.
It's got to get cold there, though, doesn't it? In that part of the country?
Yeah, it's cold. It's the strange weather, but it's cold frequently and pretty continuously. We do have two seasons, though. Wet and cold and dry and cold.
I don't like cold. Okay. Well, right here in Kentucky right now, we're having a white Christmas out there. It's like, I don't know, maybe 2 inches of snow or so. It's beautiful. Love it. Love it. So let's get into learning a little bit about you. Just so you'll know a little bit about me. I've done radio and television for like 20, 25 years in front of cameras and mics. Always loved it. Always knew what I wanted to do. And at one point, my passion is talking about things and talking with people about things that are outside of the box, all interesting stuff. And so I thought, you know what, I want to put my time into my passion. So as I started kind of reaching out to some of the TV networks with show ideas, that's not easy. So, here comes YouTube along and all these neat things where it was a long time ago, it was expensive. There's no way you could do your own show, but now you can. And so it's really neat. So here I am, and I'm not even a year old here. So I really appreciate that you're here on Blue Rock Talk. And so that's who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem at all. James contacted me and I was, I'm pretty much set on a hiatus. So I get burnt out on talk and I have to go do programming and all this other sort of stuff. And so today was the end of it. And he was a little pressing and I thought, well, he's a nice guy. And so I said, okay, dude, well, if she can set it up while I'm out doing this other interview, I'm good to go. So it worked out just fine.
Very kind of you. I appreciate that. Well, it is Crypto Connie Tuesday, so I want to talk about that. However, I wanted to ask you about something, and we'll probably kind of go in and out of a couple things here. And by the way, those of you in the live chat, we will take some questions. When we do that, please put them in big caps all the way across, because I'm not going to see it otherwise. So I hear you do something called C60, and somebody sent me some, and I guess there's a couple different varieties of it. I'm not sure, but this says, and I guess it's good for a whole lot of things. You can tell me, but this says good and cheap carbon 60 olive oil. And it says, kind of neat little things on it. But the thing I noticed the most that it says is not for drug ingestion, do not ingest, basically.
Right, exactly.
So,
right.
What? So.
Well, here's the thing, okay? This is a real big diversion and it can take a while, but I'll try and shorten it up. There's a C60 community out there. And we are all experimenting with our own personal 6-foot rats. Okay, meaning, and the reason is that this is not a licensed product for human consumption or any organism's consumption. A curious thing came about, and I'll quickly recount it. In the late 2008, 9, or 10, it became necessary for the industrial world to investigate the lethal dosage of the stuff called C60, carbon-60 molecules. The reason they had to investigate the lethal dosage was because it's a really good industrial lubricant. You can't destroy the C60 molecule. It's very much like a soccer ball, only it's made out of carbon and it's really rigid and it's 60 carbon atoms all folded together.
I saw that. I saw that diagram.
And connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can't destroy it. So it's an excellent industrial lubricant. But if they were going to use it at an industrial scale, they figured out how to manufacture it, how to get all the crud out of the manufacturing process. But in order to use it as an industrial product, they needed to have certain international standards organization things known about it, such as the lethal dosage. So they made a contract, the people that wanted to promote this, with a French lab and had our study on some rats done. And they gave the rats C60 and olive oil because, see, it turns out you can't inject it. When it's dry, when C60 is just dry, you can't get it to mix with anything. It doesn't want to have anything to do with any other kind of substance. You can't get it into water. You can't get it into juice. They try pressure, all different kinds of stuff. It just doesn't work. And so you can sort of hyper agitated into water and then quickly injected in, and they ultimately had to do that for this lethal dose study. That's what it was a lethal dose study. But there was a problem. They gave this stuff to the rats. The guy who did it made a guess as to about how much it would take to kill him in a short period of time so he could collect his money. Okay, because his job was to tell the International Standards Organization, they're the people that create the ISO standards, ISO 2000, ISO 9000. You may see these on products. And so he figured it out. He wanted to get his money quickly. All he had to do was come up with some number of weight of milligrams of C60 to body weight as being a lethal dosage, okay? And so they figured, well, here's what we'll do. We can get it to sort of go into suspension in oil, and we'll just feed it to him. So they fed it to him in olive oil. So personally, I'm not a fan of the olive oil variety. I would prefer it in avocado or even coconut oil because it's more harmonious with my system, right? Olive oil has a tendency to burn the throat.
Yeah, it can.
And it's also antipathogenic on its own, and that gets to olive oil is. It gets rid of bacteria and stuff in your gut if you just consume a lot of it. But anyway, so here's the long and short of it. They did this study. The guy did a small number of rats, and he gave them all the C60, and then he kept a number of them over here that weren't getting the C60. When the first rat in the normal group, in the control group, died of old age, they stopped giving C60 to the other rats, but none of the other rats had died. When the last rat in the normal group had died, none of the rats in the C60 group had died. And all the C60 rats were looking good, they were styling, their fur was good, they looked young, even though they were advanced age for these rats, because these rats are genetically engineered to pop off at about 2 years. For most of these studies. You'll find that that's the way it is with most of the organisms that are used in labs.
Okay.
The DNA is known that most of these mice will die within this period of natural causes. Most of these rats will die at this age, that kind of thing. So it was very specific. So they knew what they were dealing with. And the idea is eliminate all the variables that you can so you can isolate and test one or two substances. And they tried killing them with the C60 and they couldn't do it. They could not kill the rats with the C60. And when they finally euthanized the rats, in advanced rat years, they'd lived twice as long as rats should have, and this was a very small sample. They've done a bigger study since then, and some of these, in the second study, some of the rats have now lived 3 times as long as rats should. And there was no harm whatsoever from ingesting the C60. It was not in any way causing problems. They didn't know what the mechanism was at that time, but the rats didn't die. When they finally euthanized them, their brains were healthy and clean as though they were young. All their reproductive organs were the same. Their livers were clean like they could not understand because they were feeding them this dosage, a fairly massive dosage of C60 and oils, and should have put stress on the liver at the bare minimum. Their spleen was good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So some humans thought to themselves, I wonder if that'll work with us.
Oh, absolutely.
With humans.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's illegal to give to a human, so we're experimenting on a 6-foot rat.
You?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, see, so that's how that term comes about. And so when you see that reference online in some of these forums that are devoted to longevity or health, they'll say, hey, my 6-foot rat's doing great, been on it for a couple of months, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or whatever, right?
Okay.
And so it is not anything I can tell you that you should ingest. But I can tell you that I ingest it, as do hundreds, maybe tens of thousands of other individuals with very positive effects. And we now know why it works, or at least we know some of the mechanisms by which it helps. It can cross the blood-brain barrier, so it works in all of our cells. The C-carbon-60 gathers up hydrogen, which is good in your body, but it goes out of your body very rapidly because it's light, but it sticks inside the hydrogen in the C60. And it takes that hydrogen right over to the core of your cell, the mitochondria, which is its little nuclear power plant. But that nuclear power plant's involved with oxygen and burning oxygen all the time, and so it creates oxygenated waste, what we call free radicals. But the C60 brings hydrogen over to that oxygenated waste. The hydrogen globs onto the oxygen and turns into water. And the C60 is not involved as a catalyst or as reacting or anything at that level. And the oxidative stress is removed from that cell in a way that it would not have been had you not ingested the C60 and had it gather the hydrogen. So the current thinking is to ingest the C60 along with hydrogenated water. Extra hydrogen put into it.
Right.
And in Japan, they actually have bars where you can go on in and stand in a chamber and breathe and get super saturated with hydrogen.
Right.
And it has that same effect. They're trying to force it deep into all of your cells to remove the oxygenated waste, what we call free radicals. C60 acts as a carrier. But the only way you can get it is to take it in through oil, which gets it into your liver and then is dispersed into the bloodstream because it crosses the blood barrier throughout the entire body. Sort of makes sense?
Ah, I like that. So the results are also looking younger, feeling better, and
Feeling
longevity.
a lot healthier. We have not yet, because it's been so recent. The study on the rats was concluded in 2012, and so it's been so recent, we don't know if it's really going to impact human longevity. There is some thinking that it lengthens what are known as telomeres. The telomeres are at the end of every cell. When your cell is dying and has to replicate itself, create a new skin cell, new brain cell, new eye cell, whatever, it copies its existing self, so to speak. The thing that determines how good it copies is known as the telomere. The telomere shortens every time you copy it, such that you have sort of a pull date. Okay, your pull date as a human is however long your telomeres are, and they reduce every time you meet a milestone in copying your cells. So it's very much like the yogis say, where they say you're born with X number of breaths allocated to you. Learn to breathe slowly.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Wait a minute.
Okay, well, here you don't have to, because the idea is that somehow the C60 may actually be involved in stopping degradation of the telomeres, if not lengthening them. A highly prized, highly sought after mechanism within the longevity community is any damn thing that will lengthen your telomeres, because those are the key to aging and handling your stress, etc. So, but the aging component is 100% tied into telomeres and their length. Truly remarkable substance, and to have the rat study as our springboard for this it provides a certain amount of weird linguistics around the whole thing. Okay, and that's how I actually discovered it. Tangentially was through the linguistics. And then I had one of the manufacturers or two of the manufacturers actually of C60 get hold of me. And I got a couple of samples and tried it. And I tried it on, with one of my dogs. And now there's products that they make for pets.
Yes.
That are great at removing the oxidative stress. And in the animals, where it accumulates is in the joints first.
Oh,
and so,
perfect.
So that's why you lose. So I used to have what we thought of as arthritis, and I don't have those effects anymore.
Really?
And, yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's good.
That's good. You get the reports of the effect of it are really interesting. Okay, because C60 itself is not a drug. It doesn't do anything to it's inert relative to your body.
It's safe.
Yeah, and it has
Can't open the bottle.
it has a half-life of about 10 days in your system. And the idea is that it is not that you take a dose and then you take another dose in 10 days. Rather, the idea is that you saturate your body with it, because you're going to be peeing the stuff out in about 10 days. Okay. And then you keep up a maintenance dose, and it always works against the free radicals, the reductive oxygenated stress chemicals that are left from all your energy. It's like the lactic acid and so on.
Right.
I notice at my age that I recover quicker from things that are very much debilitating in terms of the amount of exertion. So where I might have to, in the past, even 10 years ago, might have 2 or 3 days worth of sore and achiness, that kind of thing, I will now only have it from that afternoon and through the evening until the next day. When I wake up the next day, I don't have that soreness from
that's
that
pretty
exertion
normal.
previously.
Yeah, and that's what you're used to when you're younger. Well, along my career, I had worked with QVC and HSN and infomercials. So people would bring me products all the time. And one of the products they gave me was, I cannot think of the name of it, but it was pretty much what you're talking about. I don't remember if it was everything, the same stuff you said that were in it, but it was all about this rat that had the longest longevity ever recorded, apparently, at this time. And they were making it for pets. However, they were also saying, hey, go ahead and try it yourself.
Sure. Okay. It's like live pet. Or maybe not. There's a couple of brands of the stuff
They
now.
had to change the name because somebody else had a name like it. It was the perfect name. So I don't know what they ended up doing. And that was about 6 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago. So, Kenny Krams was the guy that put it together. He was the guy out there that could take anything and add a flavor to it. He was like Dr. Flavor, I guess. He had a name like that, where he could, any flavor you wanted, he could create, and he would give it flavor. And he was the best of the best. He passed away probably 4 or 5 years ago. Great guy, but that was part of his product, and we were hoping to bring that to fruition. However, it was all about, they said we think it even can cure cancer and this and that. They had all these claims, but you couldn't really say anything about the claims. I mean, it had to do with the rats, but, they didn't know why with people. But apparently it was recorded that they had the longest living rat ever.
And that sounds like the C60 studies.
Yeah, I think you're
there's
right.
one that had 155 rats that I'm aware of. There's another with 188. And I think the one with 188 is still ongoing. So, and they're breaking new records every day because the rats are simply not dying. And then when they do euthanize them for the various tests, they discover that, rats don't have telomeres. All right. Rats are genetically encoded to die at a particular age, and they die almost always as a result of the buildup of toxic free radicals, or what are described as the results of oxidative stress. And so that's why rats die usually with very visible body debilitations in the form of bad hair, the teeth start going, the eyes cloud over, all of these kind of things. And it's because of the buildup in their tissues in those particular areas of the results of the oxidative stress that does the final killing of them. And so, curiously, you can keep rats going a long time if you remove that oxidative stress.
Yeah, these rats can be, they can look really good out there in Manhattan and wherever they all run around. They're no longer going to be like Skid Row rats. They're going to be all
exactly.
And nice and clean cut.
Yeah, and sleek, and yeah.
It's like the new rat. If you're just now joining us, this is Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis, and it's Crypto Connie Tuesday, and I am here with Clif High. This is the first show ever with Clif High. I welcome you once again to the show. Those of you that are here, smash that like button, please. Hit subscribe if you want to hear more along the way, because we always have a lot of great stuff here. And we will take your questions at one point, too. Make sure you put those in caps for me, okay? So let's get to a little crypto. I love that. So thank you. I'll start taking some of this. When I saw that, I went, no.
Yeah, check out the other varieties and the other oils, because a lot of people do find that they're more harmonious with something other than olive oil. But olive oil was what was originally used with the rats, so it's the basis from which everybody begins.
Okay, and I love olive oil, so that's cool. But you're
Shouldn't
right,
be a problem,
burn. It does burn.
Yeah.
I'd like to try avocado. That'd be yummy. Okay, so now what I did is, I started my YouTube channel and I started adding some different playlists, and I was, people were saying, you got to get into crypto, and they also said Clif High along the way, and I couldn't get into any of it. One of the things that I was always hired for in television was that I could take things from experts and put them into layman's terms for a bigger audience, right? So I was in car racing for a while. I mean, the axle F connected to I had no clue, but I would learn it, right? And most of the audience didn't. There's a click, right? And then we just try to make the audience bigger. So that was kind of what I was known for. So I thought, why don't I do that here? So I'll get into crypto, learn it, and get a bigger audience, because people like me, we want a new way to make money. We want a new method to move forward. And how cool is this once you decide to break that barrier? Because I know people that they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. You cannot make them. And they can be these guys that have been on Wall Street, all their life. They're past 64 and they're like, no, I don't need to do that. I'm fine. I don't want to get into it. They don't even want to learn it. And I'm very surprised, because they're into all that cutting edge stuff. But this is a whole different, ball game when it comes to that. A lot of people don't even want to think about it. So as I kind of just dove into it, Cliff, and just hook, line, and sinker. And in doing that, I fell a lot right in front of the camera. I didn't care, because I was learning, and everybody was learning with me. And so, we kind of learned as we went along. And so I've really kind of hooked in to the BitShares people. Stan Larimer, the godfather of BitShares, the BitShares blockchain, and Dan Larimer, the son of Stan. So I've learned a ton about BitShares, Steemit, and EOS, which Dan was all of those. And Stan Larimer is on the show all the time. And we talked to Peer Play's Jonathan Baihai as well. And then we've even gone off of the blockchain to talk with Sean Worthington, who has the cloud coin, which is inside the cloud. It's not even on the blockchain. I think he's got something going on in the future with an exchange, but he's doing some really neat things, collectibles that are similar to CryptoKitty, but in the cloud. So he is even, hey, the blockchain is not transparent. My stuff is transparent. It's like real money, where if I have money in my pocket and I decide to slip you $10, nobody else needs to know about it, right? But on the blockchain.
Oh, you mean anonymous?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because the blockchain by its very nature is
transparent. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
the blockchain is transparent. It's all open source.
Right.
And his stuff is not. His is centralized.
Not. Exactly. And he's proud of that because he says, you guys all kind of want something new, but everybody sees everything you do. And I got to tell you, Cliff, a lot of people I knew, I don't think they feel the same way now, but they all thought they were going to be able to get away with things on the blockchain because they would have a username. Even though it was transparent, you could still kind of find them if somebody wants to, right? The auditors, if that's what they want to do.
That's an issue if you're going into the technology because you want an anonymous way of doing business. If that's the case, though, I personally prefer Monero and Cloak. Both of those coins can be found. I've looked at the code. I've been onto GitHub. So I'm a programmer, all right? And all of this is all of this is software. Everything we're discussing is software. And so you were talking about people that just don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yes.
In a software world, and the kind of world I come from, when you do a large project, you find that people separate themselves out into the visionaries that want to jump on something new, basically just because it's new and exciting.
Right.
Then the early adopters, once it's proven, then the mainstream, and then the resistors. So the people you're talking about are the resistors. And so they're going to be, in my opinion, it's like, that's fine. Let them resist. They're not going to participate in the evolution of the technology. But what we're actually witnessing right at this moment and participating in is technology the same technology that gave you your access, that removed the barriers of entry for you to video, audio production on your own and distribution.
Yeah.
That's the key, the distribution.
Yeah.
The same technology that did that is eating money. Okay. And so software hit the planet. In my world, software is engineered. Digital software comes from the crash of the saucers in 1947, and we've been going all the way since then.
Blue rocker, there you go.
Okay, so under these circumstances, though, software has eaten a number of industries, and we've been able to watch it. I participated with digital software eating the phone industry, and that when that occurred, we were able to split the phone channel into two, and we had this backbone that we called the billing and rating channel. And that allowed transmission between the sending and receiving units to coordinate, and thus we could slice phone calls into packets, stuff them digitally, give them a frequency number, and then jam bazillions amounts of information in the same copper line, same copper wire. And so we escalated from being able to carry one call, and in some places, even in rural Kentucky and so on, even in the late 50s, you still had party lines because the copper would only carry the number of conversations, didn't know who was there. We had to coordinate it ourselves. There was no software to organize it. Then we go into digital technology ate the phone industry, and from there it ate all kinds of industries, air traffic control. It ate the movie industry with CGI, being able to render images, right? And now it's eating money. And there are predictable patterns of how the software goes through the various parts of human activity. And money is one of the latter ones it's going through because of our huge emotional investment in money that doesn't exist the same way in other aspects of our lives. So we're more willing to take a chance with a CGI movie as opposed to CGI money.
So what's after money then?
That's a good question. We'll have to see. I think, and see, there's a lot of people that are afraid of that, of artificial intelligence and the transhumanism and the singularity and so on. But as a programmer, I could sit here and discuss it in such a way that you would lose that fear. But I think in the process of eating money, what is going to happen is that software will, as they say in crypto world, disintermediate government. So the next target, I think, is government. I think software eats government when it's mostly consumed money, and I put mostly at about 65%. When we mostly consumed money digitally, it'll spread out at that point longitudinally, so to speak, into government, because government is so heavily dependent on money and especially the control of money. And one of the things that we get with the blockchain that you'll never achieve with cloud or any of this other stuff is that you have the transparency and trust in the algorithms that are within the blockchain. So because the blockchain is open, because people like myself can read the code, and I'm not going to bullshit you about this, I'll tell you exactly what that line of code does, what changes it causes in a machine as we're reading through it. I can show you what it's going to do. We can run the software, and using debugging tools, we can watch it do it. And so we can have trust in the algorithm doing as it should. And this way we don't have to trust the central banksters. We don't have to trust the lenders, all of these
banksters already sounds like a bad name, doesn't it? Sounds like a bad guy. Gangsters, banksters, banksters.
Exactly. But they're a gang. They're gangsters, right?
You're right.
And actually, I've been called that by them. I've been called a crypto gangster, because of my anti-bank stance in a lot of this. But it's they've been essentially they have been effectively controlling humanity for a long, long, long time. That power is not going to go away easily. That's why we get all of the FUD and so on being created by the banksters as we go further and further and further into our crypto conversion. As software continues to eat more and more money and more people are brought in, becomes better and so on. But I've got to tell you, I'm sorry to point this out to you, but the learning process you're going through isn't going to slow down because us guys are still inventing the stuff ahead of everybody else.
I know it. And the biggest problem for pulling in more of me, I'm getting there, right? So there's a ton of people behind me, right? There's a ton, but it's not that I've moved that far. But, download this wallet. So I'll go to this page, and there's not like download for Mac, download for PC, nothing like that. It is, what the freak is all this stuff on this paper? I have no idea what it is. Oh, are you a .mg, a .dmg, right? That's me. I'm a Mac. So I didn't know that. There's all these other things on there too. I have no clue any of this stuff. So people like us go in there and go, I can't do it. And a lot of us give up too, right? Because of that. So we need that extra little, in between me and you, these neat little designers that will do the websites for you guys. They can take what you guys do and pretty them up for people and make them easy for people like me. That would really make a big difference. Exactly. They are. But man, that's slow going. And you guys are way ahead onto the next thing. It is slow going.
But we have to be because because software always brings bugs, all right? And you don't want bugs affecting your money if you can avoid it.
True.
And a lot of people are making mistakes with digital money because they don't have their concepts in their head correctly. And so they do things that are ultimately going to prove to be stupid. And so they won't look for the little S on HTTP in the URL on the browser. Because if it's not a secure site, it's not the legitimate site, it's a phishing site. They won't have something in there that alerts them if a JavaScript is going to be downloaded on their PC. Yes. So they're not defensive about their money the way they would be about taking a big wad of currency into a county fair, right? Pickpockets, that kind of thing, shortchanging. And so you're going to be more aware then. They haven't learned these skills. So we're in the I'm stupid sort of phase, right? But there's outfits that are out there
it's true.
that a year ago these outfits did an ICO, an initial coin offering, and they raised some money in order to complete a special project or a specific project. And one of them that we can talk about is called Pillar, Pillar, like the thing that holds up big institutions and buildings and so on. And it's a non-organization organization. That's the way I characterize it, okay? It's not a corporate organization. It's more like a old hippie collective meets post-millennials, and they form some kind of an aggregative confederation. All right, you're not really sure just what you're dealing with, but guys.
That's with a lot of them out there.
Okay, but these guys are really sharp in what they're doing because their goal is to be that intermediary with their software, to build in defensive capability within their Pillar wallet and also assistive capability such that it'll assist you in dealing with some of the more arcane aspects that programmers are still sort of developing ahead of that to guide you a little bit more than just the standard wallets. You wouldn't believe what a wallet was like back in the day, okay? With Bitcoin, the first wallet, you actually had to run the entire blockchain. You were basically having to run a complete full, what they call a full node. And so it would take you 20 minutes to download on these old PCs, download your wallet and get it all set up because you had to do all of this kind of stuff. And then you had to run it once in order to be able to send and receive. And what it had to do was it had to read the whole blockchain. And so that wallet might have to run on your PC for 5 or 6 days straight just to get caught up. And then it said, okay, now we can do something.
Oh my gosh, that kind of sounds like what it's doing now. You know what I found out too, though? You're right about all this security problems out there. And the thing is, what I noticed when I started getting into it, everybody was telling me about be secure, be secure, be secure, do all these different things. And then I realized, I asked myself, why am I doing so much security with my passwords and this and that, even email, got to go to Proton, right? And I realized, wait a minute, these are all the best of the best programmers. So they're not all the best of the best good guys. There's the best of the best hackers trying to get in too. And that's what you guys already know. You're ahead of the game. You know what the bad guys are going to do, right? So you got, it's crazy that it's all of it out there. It's the bad guys too. And you know what? Yeah. Are you familiar with Jared Rice with Arise Bank? The whole Arise Bank thing? No? Okay. Well,
yeah. I know about the bank thing, not individuals, not personalities.
Okay. Well, that's Jared Rice that they came in with guns one day and took him out. Now he's working through it, through all the courts and everything, which is great. Good for him. We're cheering him on, right? But he had an idea of a blockchain phone. He said, look, your phone is not secure. We're going to create a blockchain phone that's secure. I thought that was amazing. Never thought about that. But you probably thought about something like that.
Well, see, here's the thing. Okay, so things like that, I would say that's bogus. That's a wrong idea. It's bad thinking. Because blockchain is not what people think it is. It's not a cure-all. It's not the end-all of software. Blockchains are very stupid databases. They're very slow databases. They're a distributed ledger. The one thing they have going for them, their unbeatable characteristic, is consensus. That's all, is consensus. So you have node A agrees with node B that what node A has in its block, for that same block, node B has it, and node C has it, and node D has it, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's all they have is consensus. They all agree that they're all looking at the same ledger at the same time. This eliminates the ability to double spend a digital currency. When you spend real currency, someone takes it from your hand, so you can't give it to someone else. Well, with digital currency, you're basically giving a copy of something off of your digital media to another digital media. But it's a copy. You don't actually push the whole thing over and have an empty hole. Right. And so the potential for double spend or infinite spend exists. Consensus does away with that, but it does away with it at the cost of everybody's got to reconcile with everybody else. So it's really slow.
Yes.
Okay. So the last thing you ever want to do, in my opinion, and I'm going to put it that way, in my opinion, as someone who's been doing software for a really long number of decades, you don't ever want to do anything that requires speed on a blockchain. And speed would include looking things up. So you don't ever want to have a blockchain as a search engine. You don't ever want to have a blockchain doing video storage because it'll be impossible to search for it because the blockchain is only set up to do consensus. It's not as good as a SQL database and stuff. And I've worked for some of the biggest, in fact, outside of the Google or Alphabet, I've worked for the largest software companies at the time I worked for them on the planet. And so,
Cliff, here, give me a fist bump. That's good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and and in doing so, I learned a whole lot about this, and I solved major problems for them. And I got really deep in writing compilers and databases and this sort of thing. And so I can show you technically why blockchain makes no sense for phones, makes no sense for file storage, makes no sense for video. It does make sense for advertising. It does make sense for money. It does make sense for all different kinds of things where you need consensus. It also makes sense for those things where you need some level of anonymous transactions backed by a hash or an encryption that prevents other people from getting at the nitty-gritty details. And it makes sense under most circumstances for those. But really, that's all it's good for. And so people running around saying, well, I'm going to put the Social Security system on the blockchain. It's like, no, you're not. It can't happen. It won't work. And what would be the point of it anyway? For things like large databases like the Social Security system, or phone interactivity where you have to record phone calls and do all the switching and everything to get the phone call routed, you don't want distributed. You want centralization where you can put lots of money and effort into fast, efficient indexing and searches and so on. And blockchain is not that. It's decentralized. It's incorruptible. It's incorruptible algorithm that it's got. It's open source, yet it's incorruptible. It can be open source, yet it can't be hacked. No one's ever hacked Bitcoin. All right, people have stolen Bitcoin through subterfuge, but no one's ever hacked the blockchain. And its attack surfaces, what we call in the software security business, the attack surfaces are chunks of code. And the more of those you eliminate, the more bugs you reduce, and the more attack surfaces you eliminate, the more robust your software is. But it also means you're eliminating features and functionality that other people are going to ask for, but that don't make sense given the core focus of what you're after. Does that sort of make sense? Sorry about that. Okay. All right.
No. Well, I want to ask you.
I get real opinionated about this.
No, I love it. I love it. I want you to be that way. You know, that's fine. I like that. I don't like somebody wishy-washy going, yuck, you know. Psh, psh. Okay, so
especially in cryptos. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so what I've been learning with the BitShares blockchain is the transactions are really quick. Your transactions, they can take so many at a time, and then EOS is about to start, and it's going to have like 1 million transactions in a second. And that's what's great about Steemit. You know, you do the, I love Steemit with the, you know, you blog and boom, you upvote and everything happens real quick.
That's different though. Okay, Steemit is not run on a blockchain. Steemit is a centralized database that is like Facebook or YouTube or any of these others. That's all it is. It's not run on a blockchain. No, it's not on a blockchain. It has a cryptocurrency that is non-mined, so it's minted, so they can create as many as they want, that is backed by a popularity algorithm for distribution, but none of that involves blockchain activity. There is no blockchain that is being mined, and that's a very key component of this. Non-mined cryptocurrencies like Ripple, like Stellar, there's a number of them. If you go to Crypto Market Cap and look at the ones that have the little asterisk, those are non-mined coins. Those are created at the whim of whoever controls that central database. And so I stay away from those for a lot of different reasons. But Steem is not a mined cryptocurrency with lots of nodes running consensus algorithms to ensure that everything is on the up and up. What you have there is a central database, a central repository, central control of their offering, which in my opinion is not really a cryptocurrency. And it's especially attractive but also misleading as a cryptocurrency because it's handled through a popularity algorithm. The more popular you are on Steemit, the more of these Steem coins you get. And then they've come up with a mechanism for converting their Steem coins into other coins and or fiat currencies. That mechanism basically is their interaction as an attention market with the rest of the economy.
So, on that note, because it's kind of mixing in with that what I've learned, and this is all good, but I'd love to, you know, we were going to determine if we ever did this again, if you liked me or not, and if it all works out.
Sure,
so
yeah.
in the future, I would love to bring in a third person here, and that would be Stan Larimer, the godfather of BitShares, and have him in here, and then you guys talking back and forth. That would teach people like me a lot.
Yeah, but a lot of it with some of those though, you're going to find that I'll approach it from an entirely technical viewpoint, and I'll want to debate the technical components of those.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But see, it's not really because I was trained at that in Microsoft. Okay, I worked for Microsoft for a while. At the time I worked for it, it was a culture of smart. The smartest person in the room that could put forth the most persuasive argument for their version of the technology in these large projects would be able to gather the consensus and push everybody towards that kind of a thing. So I got very good at the analysis and consensus forming around specific kinds of technical components. So there's a lot of people that will give you any number of opinions on bit shares. And because we don't have open source code, because we don't have GitHub repositories and so forth to go to and get at it, the debate sort of runs into kind of a hard stop. Because my approach to this would be to say, okay, if you're XYZ coin guy, let's pop open your GitHub and look at the code, and I'll show you where I think your coding efforts have gone wrong. And I've done this a couple of times. I've still got a few of those videos up where some of these coin guys ran into me and their businesses are not working anymore. They are defunct. Okay, so one of them was this metal Zoom that was going to happen mining in Africa. And these CEOs come to me and they want interviews, and I don't really do them because mostly these people annoy me. And this guy annoyed me, and I was at I took great pain to point out to everybody where the fallacy in this fellow's thinking was. And it was entertaining, and it helped prevent a miscarriage of money, so to speak, in Africa, which I found to be very egregious. They were using people for publicity that didn't have the technical capability to evaluate the products they were stumping for, and would have become part of this very large scheme when it collapsed. We prevented that collapse, but it's still, kind of an ugly sort of a business, not anything I go into willingly. And so I like being big key forward. I like to promote things that are good and just not really mention the shit coins, not really get involved with that kind of stuff.
And we appreciate that. Well, what do you think of EOS coming up?
We'll see when EOS launches. EOS is going to have to go through its debugging period. It's been touted as the Ethereum killer. I don't see anything that's going to stop EOS from launching a product, but I don't think it's going to kill. And any technical advantage that they would have within EOS can be adopted with the Ethereum network in a very rapid, short order, because software, there's no barrier to the use of intellectual ideas. If someone's got a good idea for a program, you can incorporate it in your program with the next iteration of your program. And if your program is like Ethereum, has already been tested by hackers, found wanting in some cases, and so on, but nonetheless has been tested, it's also hardened, so it can adopt new ideas at a lower cost than can brand new projects that are also dealing with the debugging of the basic structure and all of this other sort of thing. And EOS, let's be honest, is an intellectual copy of the Ethereum network anyway.
See, I don't know enough to argue those points with you in the first place, but isn't it a problem where on the Ethereum network or blockchain, it's so slow with the transactions right now? They're so slow, and isn't mining like the problem?
Mining is part of the issue, but yes, it is periodically slow. It need not be slow. It has been a function of the adoption rate. So if I can explain this, the more computers you have that are mining a particular cryptocurrency, the more robust the network is, and the quicker you can reach consensus. But it takes a time.
A lot of electricity too, right?
Well, no, that's
No?
people are going to run the computers anyway, though.
Yeah.
See, that's the rub.
That's what I always hear.
Yeah, and it's bogus about that. Plus, a lot of places I know are running on 100% renewables, solar and so on. And I'm trying to get a project going on using what's known as mini micro hydro or high torque hydro, low volume. That would provide free electricity, and we do mining and so on.
Nice.
And then the electricity is not an issue, right?
Nice.
So so electricity need not be a limiting factor, but the ability of the network to grow and create an effect called the network effect, where more people want to involve themselves because there's already a lot of people that are involved. That is difficult to achieve. And so EOS has yet to achieve that. They don't have hundreds of computers that are mining the network the day they start. And so they're going to be slow. And as they get success, it's going to bog down and fail and have to be regened and bog down and fail and so on until they grow a large enough network that they become robust in a computer sense of this. And so Ethereum already has that robustness. And so as they gain more people, every single computer that you add to the EOS network initially as a miner gives it that much bigger of a boost because their network is so small. However, because Ethereum is a larger network, every new computer that is added makes it that much more robust, even though the percentage of computing power it adds to the network is reasonably small just because it's just that one PC. So you get a trade-off once you reach a certain scale. Ethereum has already reached that scale. EOS will have to grow to it. And in the process, EOS is going to have to be will be attacked, and it'll also have to deal with all of its own bug issues. And software always creates bugs.
Well, I sure wish I had them right there to shoot some other things out so y'all could go back and forth, because that's so fun. I love that kind of conversation. I absolutely do. So if you're just now joining us, this is Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis, Earth's most interesting conversations. That includes people, places, and things. So we have Clif High with us tonight, and we will be taking some questions. I'm just going to look over here just for a second. I hate to do that, but I'll give you my better side, okay? I'm going to see what we got going on in here. So there's some people. Yeah, so if you guys want to ask questions, put them in caps. We can go ahead and start taking some questions if you'd like to.
Sure.
And hopefully I'll get over there and take a look at them. I love when people are talking amongst themselves in there. Let's see here. What do you think is, for people like me, I just jumped in. I'm learning everything I can by doing stuff like this. And you're exactly right. You have become an educator, and you are teaching it in a great way. I mean, you made sense with what you were saying, and that stuff's pretty hard to get. So what do you think is the best way to learn this for outsiders? Just jump right in like me? I think that's the way to go. There's not really a lot of places out there to, here's where you can learn crypto. I guess there's more and more people are doing it on YouTube. They are putting some series out there.
Yeah, from a programmer perspective, though, see, I'm warped, okay, because you say, well, how do you want to learn crypto? It's like, oh, well, you go to where the programmers hang out and just read what they're writing, okay? And the problem is, of course, they're not writing in English necessarily, even though they're writing in English, right?
That's true.
Okay.
You guys it's so funny. You guys are the little guys who are in the little corner all the time, just going at it, right? Have you ever seen, do you watch TV at all?
I don't watch TV, no. I haven't probably for at least 2 decades.
Well, anybody, if you're out there, Silicon Valley is totally the crypto world. It's great. Anyway, somebody out there, I'm sure, knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, go ahead. They depicted you guys perfectly.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, to learn the cryptos, there's the YouTube approach, and that's why I recommend people like JSNIP4, JSNIP4 channel, right? Because he's got some stuff.
But is he the guy that he's in a car and he talks about his neighbor's kids or whatever? I'm just kidding. No, I saw him do
exactly.
that.
That's him.
I didn't know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, I've tried to win some money on there before, some little currency he was giving away. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and so now see, there's something when I first started with crypto, to get the network effect from enough people to get them to run the wallets, which downloaded the complete node, they used to give away a whole Bitcoin just for visiting the website and learning about it. And so, hey, that's a big incentive.
Yes.
Pay people to learn about it, right?
Yes.
And so there's people out there that are doing like kind of things. So you can go to Bix Weir. So I do this YouTube video with JSNIP4 Joe and this guy by the name of Bix Weir, who's a former bankster. He's a reformed bankster, okay? And we talk about cryptocurrencies and this kind of thing. Bix Weir runs this site called Road to Ruta, and he gives away cryptocurrencies to new subscribers as an incentive for them to go through and read a lot of the stuff that he's got going.
I love it.
Okay, so, and there's a lot of sites that do that, and they'll give you a small fraction of some probably obscure token or cryptocurrency, but knowing how the market is, that small fraction of an obscure token.
Never know. That's right.
Never know.
You
Right.
never know.
Right. Now, here's something else. It's not a risk-free world out there for us and as humans. And I like to let people know this, that, of all of these obscure coins and these cryptocurrencies, in any given year, we might have half of the new ones fail. Absolutely turn into zero and blow away, not even dust. And we're going to get to the point where it may be some years you have 80% of them fail but it'll be a function of so many people coming in with so many different ideas. And this is the marketplace of ideas. If they can convince somebody to give them money to fund the idea is no guarantee that it's a good idea just because they're able to raise the money. And there's a lot of times that I will read these white papers, and that's another way to learn about cryptocurrencies. A lot of the cryptocurrencies put out a white paper.
Yeah.
The white paper is just on a website that says, here's who we are, here's what we intend to do, here's the time we intend to do it in, here's our reasons for thinking we should do this, and here's some supporting literature that should make you think that we know what we're talking about. And so it's not really that difficult to decode. And you can look up any of the words you don't understand that they may be using. And you can frequently gloss over the technical details if you don't use the technical component as a judge, as a metric for whether or not a cryptocurrency is likely to be valid. And see, that's where I approach it all. As a programmer with 40 plus years in the business doing that kind of stuff, at a technical level, I approach it from a technical viewpoint. So a lot of these things like Filecoin, trying to do file storage on a blockchain, I say, no, this is bogus. That idea is never going to fly, and here's why on a technical level, and I can just dismiss it. I don't have to get involved in the community or any of that part of it.
Have you, and I'm no offense at all, none,
Sure.
Please don't take it. So you are.
Wait a second. Hang on a second. I'm old, bald, and ugly. It's awful hard to offend me. The universe has already been there.
You are a very handsome man and very funny, and you got a lot of charisma and character. I love it. And you have this opinion, and you have reasons for the opinion to back it up. So I'm just curious because you were right there with this is it. Have you been wrong when you've done those this is it's? Has it ever been wrong?
No,
I've
screwed
that's
up.
never been wrong.
No. About these things. Okay, about these things. All right. So when I say that here's a technical reason that this coin won't work, or here's a technical reason that this is a bad idea, then I can usually tell you in approximately how long it'll take to crap out, because I've been a programmer in a lot of different projects, right?
But have you ever been surprised with something new coming in that fixes what you were talking about, or?
Frequently not, no. Because I base my understanding not simply on programming, but on a very deep knowledge base of how computers actually work in the register level, within the chip level, or within the primary ring level, within the chip level, within the motherboard set. And so I can build computers. I could actually probably run the machinery to actually make the chips if I were given a week to mess around with it. But the idea is that I know that, no, this idea doesn't make sense because the computer is not harmonious with what you intend to do, or the network is not harmonious with trying to move vast quantities of network or traffic across it. So the blockchain does not add to our ability to stream video back and forth. In fact, it intrudes. So because everything is chopped up into blocks and this sort of thing. And so I can tell you that those coins that are thinking about actually moving video across a blockchain, it's a non-starter. They're going to fail. I would love to be there.
Yeah.
I know of a dozen or more that are trying to do this, right? Or at least that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I've worked with compression algorithms. I've worked with writing firmware for hardware that did compression for video to send it over the phone company lines, because I've been with the phone companies since the late 70s, okay? And so I've been messing about in phone world all through the 80s and 90s and this kind of thing. And because and very few people realize, but the internet runs on the backbone of these phone lines that we call T1s and T3s. And it runs through specific routers that I worked on the software that runs the router, so I know what it's capable of and how it functions. And so I can look at these things and examine them from a technical viewpoint. Now, a lot of these coins may have a certain amount of technical chops. That is, they're not really all that bad of an idea. It could work if you overcame certain difficulties, but you can also say that on top of that, and this is the case with EOS, on top of their issues at a technical level, on top of the debugging they've got to do and the attacks they're going to have to undergo, is also the adoption rate marketing aspect issues. Having been in business for myself since 81 or 82, and making a living as a businessman, I know marketing as well, and I know what it takes to get ideas. So I've had products that I've gotten patents for that I couldn't move into the marketplace because there was no marketplace adoption for it at all. And so it was a wasted effort, and I learned from my mistakes. I think perhaps if I have any talent, I can learn from my mistakes, but also from other people's mistakes, so that I rarely make
wisdom.
it twice.
Yeah, wisdom. That's wisdom.
Right. Well, the real definition of wisdom is suffering makes man think. Thinking can lead to wisdom if you can survive the suffering.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah.
This is the great conversation. This is what I like. You're watching Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. This is Crypto Connie tonight because it's Crypto Connie Tuesday. And this is Earth's most interesting conversations. People, places, and things, just like Clif High here talking to us about all sorts of really cool things. I cannot regurgitate this at all, but it is archived, so we can always listen to it again. So let's just check over here and see if we got any questions in the in caps. No one wants to know, does C60 help cure fatty liver disease or help reverse the disease?
It helps reverse. C60 doesn't cure anything, but there's many conditions that we get that are labeled diseases by the doctors that are not actually diseases. Okay, there's no bacteria, there's no virus. It's a condition that originates within the body for a number of reasons, and C60 frequently can indeed alter that. And it's curious because one of the problems with fatty liver disease is that it can lead to fiber, and then lead to fibrous tumors, and then lead to cirrhosis of the liver and death. Right. And it's nothing you can should sneeze at it. You shouldn't dismiss it, but it creeps up on you over decades. By the time you get to realize you've got it, it's frequently basically too late because it's a condition that's a result of it's not a result of how we do things, it's a result of the environment we live in. So our livers are our chemical storehouses, and you get what's known as fatty liver disease. That's how the allopaths, the doctors, have characterized it.
Yeah.
It's a result of the fructose. The high fructose corn syrup is in every product, and the liver disease swells up and gets worse in the presence of fructose. So some people have made the connection that, it's the fructose that's causing it. And there are some issues that are certainly able to be pointed to it, but the reason that C60 works is that the fructose, being a sugar, being a glycogen product, it breaks down and it causes the oxidative stress because it pulls in oxygen in order to be burned. And what actually basically happens is the liver is incapable of dealing with all of the regular toxins you're getting, the Wi-Fi kind of toxins, the electromagnetics, and you're polluting yourself with your food. And so it packs it in, and it starts building up the fatty tissue that ultimately leads to fibers and so on. C60 will help, but it will not stop that process. It'll delay it and so forth unless you change the conditions that are starting it or that are continuing it. So C60 in combination with changing those conditions is a cure, because you stop the condition, the circumstances that are creating the condition, and then at the same time you're ingesting something that helps actually clean out the liver, even though it's being taken in with oil. When they did the autopsies on the rats, they were absolutely amazed at the level of health of the livers, in spite of the things that they had done to those rats just to try out all of this kind of stuff. So some rats in the studies were given carbon tetrachloride. Some other rats were given exposure to radiation that was known to cause the livers to pack it in. And in both cases, the rats, when they were autopsied, because it didn't cause them to die, they were poisoned them with the carbon tetrachloride until they died, but there was no damage in the liver that they expected to see. When you get carbon tetrachloride poisoning as a rat, these lesions form very rapidly. It's as though the liver dries out and sort of splits open in little tiny pockets. None of that occurred with these rats. The rats died from asphyxiation, from not being able to get any oxygen in. And with the radiation, when they did the studies on the rats, there was no indication. I mean, the study was quite clear. No indication in this rat's liver that this rat had ever been exposed to any of these radiations that are known to cause these liver damages.
Wow.
And here's something. The C60 is being used now by different subcultures within our society. And some of these subcultures are quite extreme in their behavior. Athletes and bodybuilders.
Maybe blue rockers are coming up next with it. I can't open it.
You need a bodybuilder there. They'd help you out.
Oh, there we go.
But these guys, there you go. See?
How much do
it's a miracle.
How much do you take?
There's two approaches to this. If you're young, you can, and you got a healthy liver, you shouldn't have to do
Shake
that.
it?
Okay.
Oh.
There should be no separation in it if it's an active suspension. Because it's so hard to get C60 to dissolve in there.
Sure. Right. Okay.
But I take about a tablespoon a day.
Okay.
Many people are content with a teaspoon. I'm very active. I'm out doing a lot of stuff. I'm exposed to a lot of solar radiation and so on. So I just take a tablespoon and it's just become a habit. You can build up the amount you need in your body doing that is taking little tiny bits every day. Or you can do it as they did it with the rats, which is to take a weekly dose. Or there's humans out there that they'll chug, that's a 100 milliliter, that's a 100 milliliter bottle. And I know of bodybuilders that will do 2 of those a day.
Woo!
Right. And I know athletes that are in their 50s that are taking 2 and 3 of those a day or 2 ahead of their competitions and coming out of the competition without damage to their muscles, without lacerations or anything internally, and they're even winning against people that are 20 years younger.
Wow. It's like a lubrication for your body, isn't it?
Correct, at that level. And it does so, and it's really cool. And if you combine it with hydrogen water, you have an incredible level of product there. Hydrogen can be generated by eating an apple, so it's not as efficient as just drinking the hydrogen water, but there's other ways to get it. You don't have to put, $99 into a hydrogen water device off of eBay. Or
that's
Amazon
exactly
or something.
What I was thinking about. Yeah, we did.
And that's what I did. I've actually got one. It works well.
Yeah.
And I drink hydrogen water frequently. It gives you a big boost. It's very much like drinking a cup of coffee without any of the coffee effects. It doesn't hit the adrenals at all. But because the hydrogen so saturates your system and takes out so many toxins, you just feel all energized very appropriately. Far better than these energy drinks. All of the vitamins and all the crud they've got in those.
That's true. Well, it's interesting because years back when I was at Home Shopping Network, and one of the new products we had that I was selling was hydrogen cleaning. It was a vacuum cleaner. And it was with hydrogen water, and it would clean. And it was supposed to be like 99%, 99.9% bacteria free. It was like, what is
incredible.
this? Yeah,
it's incredible
crazy.
What it does. And in the human body, it removes the oxidative stress because it just creates water out of it. And so you get all these side benefits to it. Well, some of the reported things that we've had for people with, of advancing age has been the clarity of sight, that they're getting back. They don't use the glasses as long. They use, lower strength and so on. Even in some cases, macular degeneration has been stopped, and the doctors that they go to for these diseases or conditions are reporting reversal in some of the indicators that they used to look at as for those diseases. So C60 is truly a remarkable substance.
That's cool stuff.
Quite interesting.
I like it. Someone told me to press cap down while squeezing and turn counterclockwise. I will do that. Thank you very much. I know, I couldn't get it open. Clif, is distilled water good or bad for us?
I don't particularly like it. I'm old school. When I went through my science training as a kid, we were taught that you didn't really drink the distilled water because it leached minerals out of the stomach, because the nature of the water that is needed in the intestine requires the minerals, and the body won't pass it out of the stomach without providing them. And so it's sort of good for you at one level, but not as a continuous drink. Hydrogenated water provides all of the different stuff you need. And also the hydrogen promotes a better gut health because the hydrogen is required hydrochloric acid that's actually in your stomach, your body needs hydrogen in order to make that stuff for you. So it makes the whole thing a lot easier, and distilled water just doesn't get it there for you.
I just knew that with contacts. It was always distilled water. You had to have distilled water. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, I remember that ancient technology.
That? I know. Hey, I got the LASIK a long time ago, and I had like 20/10. I was Superman, vision. And then you need the readers, and then it's like, yeah. Darn. But I think you can still tweak it. I'm not sure. This is from Wendell F. Should you take, it's another C60. People like this C60 stuff. What? I need to be a referral link for this tonight. What's going on? Do they have referral links?
Well, see, here's the thing. The crypto community is filled with all kinds of health nuts.
Yeah.
And it's a co-joining of these two groups. And so people that are into cryptos are also into affirmative, positive kind of things in other aspects of their lives.
Yeah. And I like it too because they're eclectic in a way where, there were people that when I would sell a product on QVC or HSN, they would say, well, some people aren't going to trust you because we know that you believe in Roswell back in 1947. So they're not going to trust you to buy that product because they think you're wacko because you believe that there was a UFO crash in 1947. And you're like, no, they should believe me and trust me because I'm out for the truth, right?
Right. Well, see, here's the thing. I've got you covered. And you look them dead in the eye and you say, just because I'm crazy, it doesn't make me wrong.
There you go. That's good. And then go like this.
There you go.
If they don't do it back. Yeah, it's funny when along the way in dating, some of my friends would say, look, on the first date, don't bring up Bigfoot. Don't bring up aliens. Don't bring up that remote viewing. Don't talk about it. And then I'd say, well, you know what? If I want to lose them, that's the first thing I'll bring up. And they're gone. They're gone. So it works, right? Ask Clif about OMG.
Sure. OMG is Omizgo, which is a non-mined cryptocurrency. There's some non-mined cryptocurrencies I talk about and I like because I know how the code is run, and it's not a particular issue because of what they're doing with that particular coin, that it's a created coin, okay, that it's minted, not mined. Because Omizgo is what's known as a gateway, and it's a token that is actually being used, or positioning, the people that run it are positioning it to be a gateway between the fiat world and the cryptocurrency world. And so some people will actually find themselves in the future getting their payroll in through an Omizgo coin, and they'll be able to instantly convert it to any other cryptocurrency or take it in as fiat. And so OMG as a coin is really good. I like the product. I like the way that it's structured. And so far, they've been performing quite well given their mission statement.
I like the name.
It comes from, it comes from the game of Go that's played in Japan. And Omizgo is a particular move, the way that you have like checkmate in chess.
Oh.
That particular word is associated with chess. Omiz is associated with Go.
Okay. Well, you got to keep in mind, I grew up here in Kentucky, and the Derby is a big deal, as you probably know. And, one of the techniques of horse racing and picking a horse is you like the name. You like the name, or you like the exactly, right? Exactly. Right. You would be the one going, okay, this bloodline over here is right. You be that guy.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. We like that too. So some of these names, it's so funny. I love when people have a name I can read, but some of them are like 878413. It's like, what?
Oh no, that's a coder
prisoner
guy.
number. Yeah, exactly. You guys are hilarious. I love it. So I got some that are held for review. It's just flying. So I just lost that last one. Wendell F. Did you smoke any bluegrass? Oh, they're talking to me. You're talking to me. You know what? Let me ask you about that, because I know that, I've been talking with the BitShares people. So they at one point were talking with people about cannabis-backed crypto along the way. But I think I saw something where you were talking about cannabis along the way too. Again, I saw snippets of you here and there, and I was like, oh, okay, I got to take some time to learn this stuff. But then I would come in, I'd hear you talk about all sorts of different things. So I love it. You're very well-rounded for sure, and you can get into these things pretty deeply. But what do you think about the cannabis world getting into a cryptocurrency. You think that would work in any way?
It makes a lot of sense, but the way in which the cannabis world is structured, there's a lot of screwy state regulation on top of it. And so a lot of the state regulators are it's really goofy. So I'm in Washington State. Cannabis is a legal product here. We have retail shops that are selling to a recreational market that are also able to offer cryptocurrencies through this little kiosk. And they'll sell you cryptocurrencies.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it.
Okay. And then, so you can buy Litecoin, Bitcoin, and so on, and you can even then use these currencies to purchase cannabis products. Okay. But the problem for the store is that while they can accept it in that cryptocurrency, they instantly have to convert it to fiat because of the taxation issues and so on. So it doesn't do them a whole lot of benefit, but it is spreading. It's spreading the crypto network effect in through various elements of our social order. So consider this for a moment. We're in an economic transition that is is going to have as great effect on the planet as the end of the British Empire or the rise of modern China or any of these others. And it's actually involving the death of the dollar. But at the moment, what we're really seeing is the birth of an entirely new system, only it's atypical to all the other kinds of systems that have ever originated because of the people that are being involved. So you'll find crypto world is different than any other financial revolution because it's not top down, it's bottom up. It's bubbling and churning, and that's why the regulators don't know what the hell's going on. They're trying to keep up with the visionaries as they're creating all of this stuff, and then try and keep up and tax the early adopters and all of this. And it's because it's bottom up that it's causing this very large what's called disintermediation to go through all of our social order. And so this is software that has transformed our technology and is now transforming our social order. There are people that make a projection that it will lead to the point where software transforms humans. And I dispute that, and I can argue that for hours as to why transhumanism will never occur, why it's an aberrant thought, why technology will never take us that way, and why humans are ever so much greater than and cannot be conquered, so to speak, by software. But our social order is indeed changing that way, and now we find that people that had no power in the past because of the merit within universe of their ability to think outside the box, to see the early opportunities, to be able to seize on those opportunities, these people are able to generate for themselves forms of power that have never existed in the past. And I can name dozens of individuals that are in the cryptocurrency world that are, some of them are not even programmers, but they've got a vision that they can communicate to programmers, and then they can vet the output that comes back from those programmers against their vision, and they're achieving that vision as a result of this sort of an interaction with programmers. So we have visionaries that are coming from the bottom up that are transforming our entire social order, and look how rapidly it's happened.
Yes,
it was visionary.
It's quick.
YouTube was originally a visionary disruptive media. Okay, it took over and disrupted the entire legacy media. Television is dying along with the people that watch it as they age, and new people don't come into traditional television outlets and instead spend their time on YouTube. Now there's other disintermediating technologies that are boiling on up all over
and
too.
YouTube's slacking a little bit. It's like, come on,
you
know, slacking. I'm not happy about that either. It's like, no, don't slack now. So I can see a little buffering. In fact, I can see a little buffering going on right now as I'm looking at it. It's funny. They're about 3 minutes behind us. So that's good. I can pull out one of the questions here. Yeah, funny. That's funny. No, it's great talking with you, Clif. This is cool. Are you about ready to go? Or are you
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I can go a little ways longer.
Okay. You got to remember Philly or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Deborah Smith Wallace. Okay. Please ask Clif, will we be waiting until June for the Digibyte bounce?
No,
what is
I don't
that?
think. Okay. Digibyte is a currency, is a cryptocurrency.
Okay.
Okay, it has it's one of these cryptocurrencies that has a specific focus. I won't go into it, but what we're referring to there is that there's a forecast within my predictive linguistics approach that forecasts specific language showing up around Digibyte, and it shouldn't take until June. I actually think within the most recent time I run the processing that the latest appearance of that language is going to be the middle to the end part of the first week in May. So by June, we should have seen the Digibyte announcement or surprise or uptake or whatever it is that's going to cause the emotional reaction. And the sets that describe that have already been active, and we've seen the recent turnaround of the cryptocurrencies on the 17th, 18th, 19th, and today. So we've had 2 days of all green on market cap, basically, that were forecast, and they were in that same set as the Digibyte bounce. So I've got a higher degree of confidence in the Digibyte forecast.
Is this from what you created, the web bot? Is this
correct?
Okay. And is there something psychic in it or something?
Yeah. The psychic part of it is all the humans. Okay. Humans are psychic animals, and we are constantly predicting patterns with our brain. As you're driving down, you're predicting how the traffic is going to go, where you need to be. As you're,
how can I get through here the fastest, right? Sure.
Aspect of our psychic nature, and it's my contention that most of us are not aware of our psychic aspects. That has to be expressed, and it's expressed in our choice of language. My WebBot process scrapes the language off the web, aggregates it, compares it against a previous scraping, and then looks for the differences, and then plots those differences against the context to give me a forecast of language that should be appearing around that context. And so a context might be gardening, it might be hunting, fishing, or cryptocurrencies.
Now, what kind of person would just think that up and then be able to create it?
There's a lot of us.
Pretty cool. I love it. That's
okay.
amazing.
I was just a little early. There's actually companies that were funded by the CIA that do it on a massive level. And they're trying to do socially predictive values as about, will there be a revolution in, Louisville, Kentucky? And so they'll try and do gaming, so to speak, or predictive aspects of what's going on in that environment to see if they can figure this out. Linguistics are one of them.
How about disclosure? UFO disclosure. What do we got?
Well, we're actually in disclosure now. See, there's the thing, right, is that the technologies are coming on out. And as far as I'm concerned, we understand that we as the people, now I think the last poll had 74% of the Americans believe that the country is run by the deep state, and that politicians, therefore, are basically fluff or frosting on the cake. They don't really do anything. So that is itself telling us that 74% of the population, should that statistic be accurate, actually believe in disclosure. Because if you believe in the deep state, then you've got to be aware of what created the deep state, which is all of the special access projects that curiously all originated in 1947, 48, and 49 after the non-existent crash that we all know happened.
Yeah. I got I'm thinking of the name right now. Who was the guy that went, a senior that showed up there? I can't think of his name right now. I'm picturing he held up the fake balloon, was trying to cover it up as
sure. He was the head of the Army military base there.
Jesse Marcel Sr. Yeah, he's the one who held up the fake picture of the balloon to try to hide, to try to dismiss it, right? And so his son, Jesse Marcel Jr., who was 11 when it happened, and before Dad took some of the pieces to the base, he stopped by the house and showed it to Mom and son, right? So
show and tell.
Yeah. So I got to stay with Jesse Marcel Jr. for 4 days in their ranch and hear all about it and get to know him. And he was just an 11-year-old kid at that point. He said, Dad came in, said, you'll see some stuff you'll never see before. We looked at it for, however long, and this is what I saw, and I didn't know what Mom and Dad were doing because I was looking at this, and then he took it, and that was it. That's, and he never added to that. And he would say to me, Connie, people always want me to add to this. Like, what? It's the truth. I can't add to it. It was something a long time ago. And, his integrity and character right there alone, it was just wonderful. And to be a part of knowing somebody that was a part of that was pretty cool, and that's some pretty interesting stuff. That 1947, that's like when it all happened, huh?
And that's when we start to, from my viewpoint, I start looking at things.
Big leap. boom.
Yeah, but there was exactly a big technological leap, and it was in a way that was atypical to the direction we were heading. So prior to 1947, all of the effort in the big industry was in vacuum tubes. And we had the first computers were all vacuum tube machines. And we were doing analog computing, not digital. And then, boom, 1947, and we're all of a sudden in a world with transistors, integrated circuit chips, fiber optics, and the digital software that runs on those, but would not have run on a vacuum tube world. And we abandoned vacuum tubes just like that, and we'd had a several hundred-year history with them.
Wow.
And we're progressing, and there's still things we don't know vacuum tube technology can do. And we've had some hints of it in the past, but we abandoned it in 1947 for all this digital stuff. And true, we've got YouTube out of it, and in this kind of conversation and so forth. True. So there is certainly some benefit to it. But I often wonder, what did we leave behind when we jumped into digital world?
Well, you can probably find some time and get into that a little bit, can't you, and figure it out.
Yeah,
Sounds like something you do.
Yeah, I was going to even form my own vacuum tubes, right? Because that's basically what you have to do these days. I found a fellow down in your neck of the woods down southeast that still produces them for specialized uses.
You need them for night vision, don't you? Don't you need them for a good night vision? No, okay.
No. That's a different kind of tubing entirely. I've got the night vision goggles, and
I want them.
And they're really cool. Yeah, they're really cool.
I want them.
You see stuff, you see the triangle things, you see the big ships out there. And I think once or twice I've actually seen ships I could identify, or things I could identify as not behaving the way a human would devise it. So once I was looking through the goggles and I was watching these little triangular things scoot around up in space. And by space, it's about 145 miles out. That's about really the limit of the resolution on the goggles. And I was watching these. And they were doing squadron maneuvers in groups of three, and then the groups of three would join together and then split apart, and they were and so it was training. I could tell this. I'm a military brat. It was like seeing the people on a parade field, getting ready for a big parade, that sort of thing. And they were doing all of this, and all of a sudden this weird thing appeared. And within the night vision goggles, it momentarily set me aback because it was a flash of light, but it was the appearance of this pixelated object, and then the flash of light. And then the object appeared to go into the flash of light, and then it appeared some far distance away as the flash of light recreated itself. So it was doing this weird squishy kind of motion with this light screen. So it was as though you were shining a light, jumping into it, and then could shine the light further down the road and pop out of the light down there and then redo this sequence. Not anything I've ever seen any of these other devices do. And when this thing happened, all of the little triangle guys just got the hell out of the way. They were, so it was whatever it was, they knew that it was there.
They scrammed.
They were upset by it. Yes, and
please tell me you had a recorder hooked up and you were running it.
No.
Wait a minute.
No. Yeah.
Man, are you kidding? Oh, no.
Okay, but see, the recording that you can get out of I actually have a set of the third generation night vision goggles with hand-picked optics so that I can do the recording. But the recording is very difficult to do without an automated mount feeding the whole thing into a PC, right?
It's pain.
Right, exactly. All the other support stuff you need, the tripods, the cabling,
that's exactly
all of that kind of business.
That's true. Right. That's the big hassle. That's why, it's just somebody's got to kind of make all that stuff for you, because the things that already have that in it, it doesn't go far enough. It's not powerful enough. Just going back to the 1947 thing real quick. Some people believe that they were aliens that crashed, and other people believe they were time travelers that came back and gave us that technology. Any thoughts on that?
Sure. I don't believe time travel is possible.
You don't?
No, and I can prove that intellectually in a couple of different ways with thought experiments, because time travel presupposes a particular paradigm about time. It presupposes that time is like the frames of a movie, okay? And that what we think of as our current now is simply where the movie is at the moment. But in a movie, in an actual film, not a digital reproduction, but a film, the frames exist of the previous scenes. And so that's the theory that you must hold if you believe time travel is possible, that you can go back to another frame or go forward to another frame within that timeline. And this is not possible in my understanding of the paradigm of universe, because consciousness does not exist in the past, nor does consciousness exist in the future. It only exists in what I call the ever-present now. And so there is no consciousness in a past frame to go back to. So and corporally, your body and everything is actually composed of energy. That energy is tied to the ever-present now in many quantum level, all the way up through the physical level, including astrology and all of this kind of thing, and all the energies you've been subjected to. And so your body has chemicals in it now that did not exist in the 1980s. That didn't exist in the 1950s. So theoretically, if you could go back to that age, what about those chemicals in your body not having been invented yet in that time? And how are they going to be created by the universe back then? Because that context...
Who's ever thought of that? That's great. That's great. I mean, I've never heard that. That's awesome. I love the refreshing thoughts and what you're doing. But let me ask you this. What do you think when we die? That's it? No more?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm
okay.
not.
Was that
I'm
soul?
not.
Okay.
Okay, I know exactly what the soul is. It has no intelligence. It's conscious, but it's not conscious of itself. So the soul is simply the template by which we recreate our body with each new life. And so what actually happens, there's a great book out on it called Thinking and Destiny. It's a quick read. It's about 1,080 pages, and you want to read it 2 or 3 times to get everything out of it. But it's written in 1953, and it gives a very accurate description in a very concise language with very few extraneous words about the nature of our reality insofar as what we're discussing, life, death, and everything. And it talks about the space between lives as the metempsychoses, which is a word that means the mentition, the thinking that occurs between your lives and what actually goes on. And so under the circumstances, no, when you die, what's going to happen is your soul has to be cleansed of the experiences you've had in this life, such that when
C60 olive oil or avocado
no.
coconut.
Well, this is the thing. This is the actual hell of it. Okay, that's a joke.
Ooh,
okay,
right,
because everybody goes to hell. Absolutely everybody. And everybody also goes to heaven. Now, the good part of this is that it's both necessary, because you could not have thoughts of a past life that were as real as your thoughts in this life and function in this life. It wouldn't do any good to have a past life intruding in your conscious thoughts as you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden you're reliving a memory from a past life and wondering what the hell's going on. You're going to have a crash, that sort of thing. There's mechanisms within universe, because universe is self-correcting, self-modifying, and self-protecting, that prevent this kind of thinking. One of these things is intuition. And to get intuition, what happens is your soul goes through this period where it literally actually burns off all of the memories and everything and distills down into what I call a thick syrupy mass. And that droplet is all of your intuition that you take to the next life. And so when you're born, you bring intuition, which is knowing without having to think about it. And I mean, we can get into the details of it if you really want to go there.
No,
but,
I love it. I was going to ask you about telepathy, if you thought, from all this that telepathy is real.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Telepathy works. There's no mystery about that, because we're energy beings. We're not actually matter.
But
okay?
we're not doing it, though.
No, we do it all the time.
I mean like an actual conversation, doing it all the time.
An actual conversation is difficult because of the nature in which we deal with conversation going through the linguistic center of the brain, and telepathy not involving words. Telepathy involves imagery.
It's a message. It's like a message downloaded.
Right.
You can't even describe it. It's not even always a message. It's not even always. Sometimes it's like words written out. It's weird. But you get it. You get it. However it gets to you, you get it. And you get it like that. There's no question. There's no questioning what it is. Amazing. I love it. What is it?
And so we have the synchronicities, and this is all because we're energy beings. And the problem is that we're limited by our four senses. We don't have five senses. We've only got four. They're enclosed in our cranium in order to protect them. These senses blind us to the universe. So your eyes only see 0.5% or 0.05% of the entire light spectrum. So there's most of the light you don't see. In fact, you never actually see light. You only see what reflects light. You're not able to see the light being transmitted. Your eyes are a subsystem that present to your brain an image, and you're not involved in the processing to get that image. Same thing is true of taste, hearing, and smell. You end up with the end result of these subsystems that are processing it to you. You don't feel the light. You don't feel the smells. You just react to the end result that is presented to you. And it gets really deep into what I call woo-woo to go on into this, but because of this...
I like woo-woo. It's all right. I don't like the name, but I like what happens. So let me ask you a personal question here. Are you married?
Yeah.
And she handles all this all the time? She just handles she handles this all the time?
Yeah.
I love it.
So far,
I love it.
Yeah, for about 45 years. Yeah.
I'm just kidding you, by the way. I think it's great. but good for her. Good for her.
But basically, the subsystems that we operate under are keyed into the visual framework that we see in movies. Okay, movies, the old style movies, not digital, were frames, were pictures that we showed a light through, and then we moved them fast enough that you actually saw motion in there. That was about 40 to 60 frames per second, as low as 24 or per minute, as low as 24 frames, but as high as 60 gives this general range. Okay, so our brains are keyed to that. We're actually energy being destroyed and created 22 trillion times a second by this thing that is this silent pulse that rebuilds universe around us. This is what allows motion. There is no such thing as a solid atom. There's only an atom when we want to look at it. And it's because we're taking a 24 to 60 frame slice and looking at it. And because this happens, because the 22 trillion times a second recreation, death and destruction of your body happens 22 trillion times a second, it's happening so fast that you think your body is solid. It's not. It is, in fact, composed of energy. And the energy is able to pick up other energy the same way that an antenna can pick up radio frequencies.
And the amazing thing is, though, with what you're saying, which is incredible, is at the same time, I'm also seeing the same thing that you see.
Correct.
That's even more miraculous.
And then you get into the philosophical debates of whether or not we actually are seeing the same thing. Is your blue the same as my blue? Well, now we actually know that there's biological differences that intrude, and that there's female blue and there's male blue.
But there is, a commonality, at least, that we can move on and communicate. Correct. And, that's pretty Correct. Cool. Amazing stuff. It is Crypto Connie Tuesday here on Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. I'm Connie Willis, Crypto Connie. This is, wait a minute, let me point the other way. It's backwards on this thing. This is Clif High over here, and we're talking about all sorts of great things. I hope you're liking the show. If so, hit that like button. I hope you subscribe if you're new here. We'd appreciate you becoming a Blue Rocker. That's someone in the know and someone that knows how to do this. And by the way, Clif can do that naturally, so he is truly, genuinely a Blue Rocker. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I'll ask a couple more questions. Is that cool?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Any new info on ZenFin?
There's a lot, but there's no point in going into it. There's some of these coins that I don't want to set up a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of stuff on and discuss about something that's vaguely hinted about in the data. And so I'm resistant to get into some specific coins because people know me well enough that it moves markets. And we shouldn't do that. I should not do that inappropriately, and I don't do it tecapriciously. So there's some new information. Yes, I'm going to tell you honestly, there's some new stuff about it. But no, I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Tease.
So, no, it isn't that. It's just that I don't want to speak about it because it'll be manifesting in our reality so quickly that I don't want to set up an expectation for it, right?
Do you think that what percentage of the population will be involved with crypto by the end of 2018?
I'm guessing we'll be about crossing the 3 to 4%. We're about 1.5% now, I expect. And we're going to double the population over the course of the rest of this year. But the key part of that is that brings us into an entirely different cohort. Okay, if we think about software eating money, it's going to go through visionaries, and that's only about, in this particular instance, about 1.5% of the population. So once we're out of that, and we're about 3%, we're well into early adopters. And the total size of visionaries is 1.5% of the population. Total size of early adopters is about 13.5%. So we're going to really grow in a serious way over a very short period of time as the early adopters come in. And the thing about early adopters, having lived through technology moving into very large organizations like governments and huge corporations, when the early adopters come on in, they come in a very steady, strong, continuous kind of a push. Many of them motivated by what we call FOMO, or fear of missing out. But that's one of these things that's just unstoppable. So we're going to have ups and downs within the market, but it's going to grow in a serious way over the rest of this year. And then the rest of those early adopters, from the 3% to the end of the 13.5%, that's 2019. So we'll triple or more in that year alone.
Okay. All right. That sounds pretty good. Some people were getting into the lines we crossed in the other areas outside of crypto, and then other people were like, "Hey, pull back. I get you. I understand. Sorry, you're right." Somebody said, "I got lost in your knowledge." Absolutely, I love that. I love that kind of stuff. So Mike B wanted me to get back into the crypto, so he sent me some telepathy of crypto, and it worked.
I like Mike B. It's like, "Hey, guy, how you doing?"
Oh, yeah. So you know him? Okay, I love it. Lots of great followers here. Connie, praise the Lord. Look, population involved with, we already got that one. We got that one. Because you and I were talking about all the other things. Yeah, it's interesting. You were talking about reading 1,080 pages as a quick read. And I think it's Ibuki says, takes me 5 years to read 1,000 pages. I know I was going to ask you, what is a long read for you?
Okay, remember that software I was telling you about that I had patents for and I could never get into the marketplace? Yeah. It was a product that allowed people to read from computer screens at up to 2,000 words per minute. And that's what I dialed it down to. And I used it successfully myself at over 3,000 words per minute. And it had, because of the things I did in that software as a programmer, you had a higher than normal retention rate on the reading, and it moved a lot more of it into long-term memory. And so it made, to a certain extent, the use of that product has made my knowledge base what it is today.
I love it. Yeah, reading and just pulling things in, right? Getting more and more in there. Wow. Well, can you like,
the reason
the
reason I stopped producing it is because of modern displays. It was the stuff I was doing was at what was known as the hardware level, the metal level. And so I was actually manipulating the pixels within the old style monitors. When we moved to new style monitors of the plasma displays, liquid crystal, and so on, and high definition, that technology that I had gotten a patent for sets up this interaction with the brain that can lead to seizures. And so I can't be part of that.
No.
Right? Yeah. So I stopped supporting the product because of some instances, not of using that product, but of something similar that was being done in television in Japan in the 90s, causing all of these children to have epileptic seizures. I don't know if you remember the episodes or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that technology that they were using to get that higher dopamine response out of your brain from their technology was basically the same kind of thing I had patented, and they just lifted that and put it into TV. And so I saw the handwriting on the wall and said, no, this, as we continue, this will become ever so much more a problem.
Wow. And putting it in, hitting the masses. Yeah. Wow. I got you. That makes total sense. Let's see here. There's so much talking in here. It keeps bouncing around. Oh, okay. Now this has been going throughout the conversation. Are you a flat earther or a globe guy?
No, I'm a spheroid. I'm a spheroid. I'm an oblate spheroid kind of a guy. The flat earthers, I've offered to debate any flat earther on a point by point metric and even do some of the experiments with them if they will first do something for me. And that is that I want a flat earther to take a flat earth map, and I want them to sail from Seattle to Hawaii or some similar situation using only a regular magnetic compass and a protractor and that flat map and no GPS, because this is a correcting kind of problem in my mind, because such a person that would do that would die somewhere near Midway Island as their supplies ran out and they were totally lost, because you need trigonometry. And so I'm suggesting, see, here's something. All right, human beings are very efficient critters. We don't like doing things that have no practical application at all, right? And we invented trigonometry. The reason we invented trigonometry is that you need that as a sailor in order to plot your position on a globe. You don't need trigonometry if the Earth is flat. There's so many things we would not have invented if the Earth actually was flat that I know it's not flat at all, and that their idea is some kind of a weird cult coming out of the Department of Defense for who knows what agenda. But nonetheless, I can prove that it's not because of what humans do. And so we invent trigonometry because on a globe, one thing about geometry, one key difference between geometry and trigonometry is that in geometry, the sum of the angles of a triangle are limited to 180 degrees. That's not true, because as a triangle goes over a globe, each of those angles can be larger such that you get a sum total that's larger than 180 degrees. In fact, you require that to do celestial navigation. And you require it to do coastal navigation if you're outside of land, and even if you're doing dead reckoning plots. You need this knowledge. And so we invented trigonometry in order to be able to sail, and probably it was, motivated by trade and, and the lust for conquest, all of this, but you need it. And so we invented that. And so I know the Earth is not flat. Now, there's also a bazillion other reasons to know the Earth is not flat. One of them is the distribution of native oils. So, for instance, we have trans fats, or we have omega-6, omega-3 ratios in oils that go all the way down to omega-0, so to speak, with the coconut oil in the equator. And as you get further and further and further north, you end up getting into a different ratio of omega-6 and omega-3s. And it has to do with the nature of the radiation that's coming down on a globe and what the animals and plants have to do to protect themselves. So at the equator, you have a different level and density of atmosphere. So the oils that form in plants and animals around the equator, like coconuts, has a different saturation level than what you need at the far north, where we have salmon and seal and orca and other kinds of plants and plants that all have a higher density type of oil because of the radiation they have to deal with. And so there's that. I mean, you can pick any aspect of our life, and we can drill down and say that because of this, the Earth is not flat.
I would love
and also,
to. Oh, go ahead.
I measured the planet once. When I was in school in Germany, we had to recreate all of these mathematics. That's how they taught us. There was this, in the 60s, there was this thing called gymnasium, and it was very much a Socratic method of teaching. They let you learn to think critically and do the experiments yourself in order that you would not forget them. They didn't just tell you about them. And so they had us actually perform the kinds of measurements that the ancient Greeks did in order to measure the planet. And we were as kids, we were really puffed up because we got really damn close to what had been the official
awesome.
Size of the planet. Right. And so you don't forget that stuff.
That's right. That's fun. That's the way it should be taught, for sure. There's just so many questions in here. I'm sorry. Pillar update. You already did that. You already did a pillar update.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pillar's cool. Their technology will roll out this year, and because of their positioning from last year into the marketplace, they're going to really dominate the space.
Well, we've got Flat Earth Project guy that's a surveyor, and he is willing to debate you anytime. And I'd love to have that here on Blue Rock. I think that'd be fun, because I'm Blue Rock Talk, right? And I have a little globe, right? And then I think his name's Mark Turner. Can't remember now. I think it's Mark Turner. He made me a little flat thing so I could show. So when I interviewed some flat earthers, I had my little flat Earth Blue Rock Talk. So
okay.
I'm open for whatever.
But see,
you guys talk.
another thing too is that when I was a kid, my father was in the military. He was somewhat privileged by his rank, and we were stationed in Kansas. he went to the War College there. And we were there for, I don't know, maybe 6 months or a little longer than that, two trimesters. I think they ran him on a trimester system at that time. Anyway, we would get up and we would do gliding. He was a self-taught pilot.
Is it Air Force? In the Air Force?
No, he's in the Army.
Army, okay.
Taught himself to fly helicopters in Vietnam and had flown all different other kinds of things insofar as what was legally allowed. But we could legally get hold of gliders, and they would basically tow you up and release you, and then you were on your own and you were a pilot. But we would be able to get up high enough that you could see the curvature of the Earth. I mean, because in Kansas, we were like eagles. He would warp us for hours. And, one of the things he always used to say was, have you peed? This is before we would start. Just to make sure. Because,
right.
You might be up there for 5 or 6 in altitude.
Right,
and
right.
It was a tremendous view from up there. You would lose oxygen to some degree, so you were aware of how high you were, and you could actually see the curvature of the Earth. And that being the case, it's like, flat earthers, all of their minutia that they're concentrating on as individual cases don't really stack up to that kind of being able to see it for yourself.
Well, they have an answer to that, I'm sure. And
I'm sure they do.
I would love a debate. That'd be fun. Maybe we'll do that at one point. So,
but we can actually prove, by the way, just for the flat earthers, you can actually prove with models. If we ever do a debate, I'll put the kibosh on it by proving with models that the only way we get the kind of sunsets we have now is if the Earth is indeed a globe.
Okay. I would love that. I think that'd be fun. Ask Clif about the 4th generation blockchain.
Yeah, okay, so this is all software. It's all iterative. Software gets better over time. Early versions of YouTube weren't able to handle the volume. Early versions of the networks are always not breaking, but are vulnerable because there's always bugs and everything entering into it. So I expect that there will be a 5th and a 6th and a 7th generation of blockchains. In my opinion, though, even those like Hashgraph that are taking a different approach at the consensus algorithm are not necessarily going to have such a big gain in efficiency in any other aspect of their operation as to force people to really look at them and adopt them. Because as we go forward, the first generation of blockchain, which is Bitcoin, has a certain amount of wealth in terms of energy, money that's been put into it that is difficult to shift out of and shift into the next generation and so on. So it's not going to happen like that. It's going to be incremental as we go forward if a superior technology is able to demonstrate that it is indeed superior at that level. But it'll take a long time. Blockchain or Bitcoin is as secure as it is because it does not have it does not allow for or while loops. You can't do those kind of attack surfaces on Bitcoin. So because it's not a complete Turing machine is its strength. But Ethereum argues that it's its weakness. And we're seeing the marketplace adoption and real world tests of those two positions. Bitcoin being slower growing at this stage, but much more secure, much less problematic than we see with Ethereum. When EOS comes on out, it'll be a sort of 2.5 generations from Bitcoin. It'll have to go through a birthing process, the testing period, and so the 4th generation of the blockchain will be also involved in that. And it's going to bring on much more sophisticated attacks. And so to a certain extent, when I'm faced with questions like that, to the knowledge, to the cognoscenti, to those who are aware of the history, I say, and is that all that we DAO do? And point them back to the DAO. Okay, a big fiasco that erupted on Ethereum because it seemed like a good idea at the time, but they hadn't really thought about it. And they invented these things called distributed access objects. Or distributed application objects that were autonomous little kind of critters. But they never really, at the time that the people put it together, the organization that came up with the idea and did all the coding, did not envision people like myself that I never got a chance. It happened before I could get onto it. But I saw the hole there and was going to do it my own way. But to code an aggressive distributed application object. So I would have coded one that didn't play nice. And just to prove to them that they'd had left a big gaping hole there, hadn't considered all of this. I would have given back all of the money just for the bragging rights that I brought it down.
I love it. I love it. It's been great meeting you for sure. I don't want to take any more of your time just because it's almost,
I've got to go.
We're coming to the witching hour, and you did great. You were going to give us an hour and you've given us 2. So I want to thank everybody in the live chat as well. I hope that you guys hit that like button. If you liked it, and I hope you subscribe. I hope you are a new Blue Rocker. I really appreciate that. We got some good stuff coming up. We got Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky, UFO in the Woods. He's going to be here Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Far Out Thursday, and then Bigfoot Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern. That's fun too. And I'll be on Coast Saturday night. I've got Little People, doing a story on Little People, Samantha Ellen Ritchie. They're like 3 to 4 inches tall. And she's, you know what? I think she's over there by you, Cliff. She's over there by you taking pictures of, she calls the area Field of Dreams. And she's at least in that part of the world, and all sorts of neat things when they take pictures and what they see. And
well, they're probably into cryptos too.
Some of them are, cryptos and cryptids, and you got it all, right? Yeah. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed the show, and definitely with Cliff. Anything else you want to say before you go?
No, it's been got to get stuff done, so I'll say goodbye.
He's got to say goodbye. Well, hey, hang on just a second here, okay? And I'll say goodbye to everybody. So you guys, that was it. Thanks so much for being a part of Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. If you're new, I hope you stay with us. We'll always do some more Crypto Connie Tuesdays and crypto kind of breaking news along the way. We do a lot of that too. So I want to thank Cliff for showing up. That was a good time. And I hope you guys join me for more. So, good stuff happening, really. I appreciate that. And by the way, if you do want to donate and support Blue Rock Talk, I'd appreciate that too. We're not a year yet, not even a year old yet, but if you look in the links below, there's all my little favorite cryptos. And, I think I'm going to get rid of the video one. I think I've got some advice tonight to get away from the video one for sure. So you guys take care. Have a safe and happy